this is it. Rounding out the last of this challenge journey thing that I did this month of Super Sentai, all the way in 1991 with the 15th Super Sentai season, and that was Chojin Sentai Jetman. Like I mentioned in my Gokaiger video, the Jetman tribute episode was really special to me. That was the one I wanted to talk about, and I was really looking forward to watching this season to see, all the references and what led up to the references that were made in Gokaiger, and to just kind of see and experience it for myself. But I don't think I want to get too much into my general experience watching through all the Super Sentai just yet. I'll be making a separate video for that. So right now I'll just kind of focus on Jetman. So Jetman was watched in all of January of 2020. So there's going to be a bit of a discrepancy between the years that I stayed and the order. Yeah, so I wasn't even originally supposed to watch Jetman until, I was ordering the DVDs to watch, and, Shout Factory had Jetman. So apparently this was released in September of 2018, and I didn't really think about watching it until after I had already started my catch-up journey. So that's why this is coming at the end of the journey challenge and of my video series. But it's kind of interesting because it does provide some interesting insight, because I started old and then I worked my way through the middle and then to the newer stuff, and then kind of dropping back down to the older stuff, not dropping in terms of quality, but dropping in terms of chronologically when it released and when it occurred. Provided some interesting insight, because this is going to finale video territory in terms of like wrapping up and reflecting on my whole journey. But just to sum it up real quick, just for the sake of Jetman, it was definitely jarring going from something really recent to something older. This is older than me. On the surface, it was definitely like certain visual effects or camera tricks that they had to use at the time, the availability of technology. But going a little bit deeper, something about how they developed the story and the setting. I just feel like with the newer stuff, look, I enjoy everything, the old and the new, but something with the newer stuff, they definitely try to put more flair into it, not in a bad or excessive way, but it's a business, so they kind of had to jazz it up a little bit more. That's why they share a lot of stuff with Kamen Rider. That's why it has a certain flash to it, I guess, but at the same time it also has a certain polish to it, because going back to Jetman, it didn't have some of the traditions that you would normally see. There's just a distinct difference of the older seasons and the newer seasons, whether it's the marketing or how they kind of try to format the episodes, because it was kind of a darkish season, I'm not gonna lie. And I guess not that the newer seasons don't get into dark stuff, whether it's character deaths. I don't know, I think maybe something about not having the same polish or the same shine or the same flash that newer seasons have. It's a little bit more raw, I guess. It's still a Super Sentai, so don't expect anything like super deep. Don't expect it to win an Emmy or something, but it was definitely covered some dark themes, and I think I'll get into that when I talk about the episodes. I guess just into the things that I liked and into the things that kind of threw me off. Things I liked: Yuki Gai, Black Condor. After getting an introduction to him from the Go Kaido tribute episode, and what he did for the Rangers, that was the only real introduction I had to Jetman. So that was the thing I was looking forward to, and he's still stuck with me. Like, his character still stuck out to me, especially when I get to find out why he is the way that he is. You don't really go into his childhood experiences and how that shaped him, but as an adult, you see his values, you see his views. Like when he got hit with the Birdonic wave, which is the thing that gives the Jetman their powers. They're trying to recruit him, saying, you were hit by a wave, you need to help and be a Sentai. He's like, nah, I don't really think so. Yeah, not my thing. Like, the world doesn't need protecting. Like, humans are foolish, they could stand it out anyway. It's like, oh damn. Throughout the season, he's still his usual rough self, but he eventually kind of comes around to helping the team and really developing a bond with all of them, especially with Ryu, the Red Ranger. In the finale, it does like I think it's like a 2-3 year time skip, and then the short time that you get to see Guy, he's very different. He's still kind of rough and tough, because in the last episode he takes down like a random robber, but he's kind of reminiscing with Ryu about how they managed to protect the earth and protect the blue sky. They managed to set out what they wanted to do, even though at first Guy didn't even want to do it. He's not exactly the greatest role model, because this was a different time, but he would smoke, he would drink, and they showed it on TV for kids to see. As an adult, it kind of made me want to drink Macallan. I guess advertising works. Like I kind of mentioned in my Go Kaido video, being able to see his character and how he grew and how he was, it just made that Go Kaido tribute episode make so much sense, because no one could have taught him that lesson other than Yuki Gai, because he was abrasive. He was the one who didn't even want to become a Sentai, but he kind of took it the hardest. Okay, and I guess while I'm talking about Yuki Gai, I want to address his death real quick, because goddamn, that was a tragic death. So after watching Go Kaido the first time, and then just reading about Yuki Gai's death, I was like, oh man, is this it? Is this it? I found out later that, spoiler alert, it happens in the finale, and he gets stabbed by the robber he was taking down, like I kind of mentioned earlier. And then he makes it to the Red and White Rangers' wedding. Well, he doesn't make it to the ceremony, but he just barely makes it to the reception, where they just finished the ceremony and they're gonna take pictures. The thing that was so tragic about it, he lights himself a cigarette, because I think he knows he's gonna die, because he didn't want to miss the wedding, because he wanted to really be there for his friends. So he lights up a last cigarette, and actually kind of parallels an earlier villain's death, although that's kind of a common trope, smoking your last cigarette before you die. But apparently it was left ambiguous as to whether or not Guy actually died. Watching that scene, oh yeah, he died. Apparently there's a non-canon manga that kind of addresses it, and it's like, I think the manga had like a Green Ranger to replace the Black Ranger, and the Green Ranger was like from America, and then you find out later that Red and White have a son, and then they name it Guy after Guy, but that was not canon. So, but then his death was eventually canon because of Gokaiger. Anyway, back to why that was such a tragic death in my eyes, is because he was kind of right when he was saying humans are foolish. He didn't die in battle. He didn't die protecting the Earth. He died by the thing he was trying to protect, which was humans, other people. And it was a person who killed them. And it wasn't even personal. And something about that is just so tragic. I was like, my heart aches. It's like, damn, dude. Freaking sucks. He was kind of right. But he didn't even die protecting the Earth. He died on a random day. Ugh. It hurts. Oh, it hurts just thinking about it. So something interesting about this season is there's a bizarre, like, love triangle, rhombus, pentagon, hexagon thing, because, okay, it's a lot to explain. So, the Red Ranger had a girlfriend who was supposed to be a Jetman, but then, you know, during the power-up or surgery or demonstration process, kind of like when Captain America was getting, you know, bulked up in that one session demonstration thing, she was supposed to be one of the Jetman, but then, you know, when it was all happening, there was an attack, and then, you know, she went missing. And then, you know, it turns out she becomes one of the villains, because I guess the villains just picked her up and, you know, kind of brainwashed her. And then, so that's one side. And then, you know, because she can play music, for some reason it was really soothing to one of the other villains. So that's, you know, this too. Even though this was kind of like one-sided. And then we have Red, who was still attached to White, and then Black, who was attached to the White Ranger, and they kind of get together for a time, but she's still hung up on Red. And then they could just kind of throw in that Yellow has a crush on White as well. So when it was all going down, I was like, wait, what? Wait, there's so 6, yeah, so it basically becomes a hexagon at some point. And it was like, one of them, like, a few were fleshed out more than the others. Like, you know, the villain only liked, so Rie, his love, before she became the villain Maria. I mean, some of them are more fleshed out than others. I mean, I didn't really know that Yellow kind of had a crush on White until he just randomly mentioned it, and then he just kind of ate his feelings away, and then that was kind of it. Black and White were kind of together for a time, and then, you know, it was one of those things like, oh, there's something in the relationship that's wrong. It's because White was still hung up on Red, but then they eventually get married at the end. Spoiler alert. Oh, because, well, Maria, or Rie, Ryu, or the Red Ranger's original love, does die at the end, in the endgame arc. And that was a pretty sad and tragic death, too. Freaking no happy endings. That's kind of why I felt like it had a certain rawness to it, like I kind of mentioned earlier. So even though it had all those parameters, and, you know, maybe they took advantage of the fact that not all of it was super fleshed out as it could have been. That's why some of them were just kind of on the surface, like the villain to Maria and yellow to white, those didn't have as much strength as the white and black and white and red and red to VA, and so I feel like they actually kind of handled like that romance shape okay. Like it was still pretty easy to follow, and even though I was binge watching it, I never felt like, oh, get on with it already, because there are some shows, CW shows, where they throw in the romance thing, and it's like, oh, come on, get on with it. It's like, just do it already. Or like, it's like, okay, just get together already, or don't. Enough of this back and forth BS. But then I felt like maybe it was because they only had 50 episodes, whereas those had been running for almost 100 episodes. They managed to handle this okay. It was digestible enough. At least it was for me. Or maybe it was because I binged it, but it was good. It was decent. And I felt like it actually lended itself to a pretty interesting story and dynamic between the characters. I might have mentioned it in the Abba Ranger episode, but this is kind of the last time I really see that kind of storyline where there is, well, maybe not a whole bunch of love, like romance shapes, like between Rangers, and especially involving the villain. I don't think I really see a love thing between a villain and a Ranger ever again, because there are some where you do see a love, or like it's more of a crush, but you never see them where it's like they have this deep connection to each other. Because with Abba Ranger, Asuka and Mahoro, they were basically engaged when everything started going down, and then they got separated, and then eventually they technically had a kid together. Whereas with something like, say, if you want to bring it to Jackie Ranger, Ryo, and Melee, it was very one-sided all the way through, and then he doesn't really realize their feelings until the very end. Or even Choruger, there was a little something going on between Nobuharu, who was the Blue Ranger, and Canderia, but again, that was just like a crush, like a puppy love. Like they didn't go deep into it after the series. Whereas this one, it was like there was a strong connection from the beginning, middle, and end of it, is I think what I'm trying to get at. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to the day they actually do something with this again. At some point when I was doing these videos, I noticed every time I would say, oh, everyone's bonds and relationships. But it was always like amongst friends, amongst siblings, amongst family, but you don't really get to explore this deep of a romance and attraction and that kind of relationship as much. So I'm kind of looking forward to the day when they can kind of revisit it and modernize it. Not to say legit, like going back to all the love shape stuff. The only thing that was missing was sex. Like there was at least one or two situations where there was a lot of potential for it to happen, or at least, if anything, a deep, loving embrace. Yeah. So just that was like kind of one fun thing. For some reason, I have it in the threw me off section. I guess it's just because I was like, oh, it was a kind of a surprise seeing them after the fact. But two of the actors from Jew Ranger actually make appearances, and one of them is Dan, who plays the Blue Ranger, and then one of them is the actor who plays Geki, who plays the Red Ranger in Jew Ranger, which is the season after Jetman. It's kind of funny because the one who plays Dan, his character in Jetman is also named Dan, but it's not the same character that he plays in June Nature. I don't know, it's just kind of funny. Yeah, like I said, kind of makes me want to Jake McKellen. I guess, in a sense, advertising works. Maybe it was because I binged it, or maybe because I had a certain pre-notion going into it, but that's kind of it in terms of things I liked and things that kind of threw me off. Interestingly enough, I actually don't have an episode to talk about. I couldn't really think of any, because not that every episode was generic, because they do the common tropes, but like it was more so moments that stood out instead of one whole episode. And I think that's kind of how I want to approach the ending reflective portion for Jetman, for this video and for this video series. I mean, in all honesty, I think, kind of thinking back and reflecting, I think about half of the episodes I reviewed that stuck out to me were really just because of a certain moment that happens. There's a handful of them, so I'll just pick 5. That's literally a handful. So I think kind of taking this approach where I kind of talk about different moments that stood out to me kind of lends itself to my overall experience, like watching through years of Super Sentai and going back to watch Jetman, where I'm kind of on the lookout for references, especially the ones that happen in Gokaiger, and just kind of seeing the difference. And I think these episodes kind of stood out to me because it kind of let me reflect on Super Sentai as a whole, especially because I was, it's the last one, so it was kind of like capping everything off, and again, just kind of, giving me material I need for if I ever want to do a story like this. So one of the episodes, bear with me, episode 10, Cup Noodles. There is a cup of noodle monster. I know on the surface it sounds ridiculous, but I think the insight that it gives is interesting because, like I may have mentioned before, something about when Japanese media approach to addressing like certain issues, they give it like a tangible form, in this case the form of a monster, which could be rooted in the belief in spirits and gods in relation to Shintoism. But the reason why the cup of noodle monster exists is because that cup of noodle monster is supposed to like represent humanity's, like, they're always in a rush, and this is like early 90s Japan, so they were only going to grow from there, and just society and businesses and cities were just going to grow from there. So that was actually a commentary on that, and how it affects, one of its powers and how it affects people is that when it eats its ramen, they become super impatient, which again just kind of brings it back to people are just always such in a rush, and they're not valuing their time, and even when they try to get a lot of that time back, they're not doing anything not super valuable with it. That was actually a pretty deep message that even kind of holds true to today. Even though the monster itself was ridiculous, the message and commentary behind it was actually pretty deep. The next episode was called The Hellbound Bus, and that was episode 12. I'm not gonna lie, even as an adult, the concept of this episode is damn terrifying. So it's kind of like, I forget what that style of episode is called, where it's like, I think they call it like a box episode, where it's not cutting from place to place. Everything the entire episode pretty much takes place in one spot, and that spot is a bus. And it's kind of like Murder on a Train, where it's like, every time they pass through this tunnel, someone dies. And, but even then, everyone knew that this was potentially a bus that, according to urban legend, was going to take you to hell. Because, there have been reports of people going missing. Because, in this case, the bus was the monster of the week. Or the bus was possessed by the monster of the week. And, the bus just has people dealing with, their demons. And then 2 of the rangers are on it, white and yellow. And then they're there to kind of help with the situation. And, some of the other passengers, one of them was like Yakuza gang member who I think was trying to escape. One of them was like a retiring police officer who was riding the bus to handle his last case, which, his suspect or his target was actually the bus driver. And then there's one woman who's actually there to die. Like, I think she either knew that the bus was the rumored bus that was taking people to hell, or she was using it to, get to the bridge that she was going to supposedly jump off of, because I think she had it with being cheated on and stuff like that. I think it kind of had a happy ending, because, they do, the police officer gets his guy, the lady's gonna give, life one more chance, and apparently the actress who plays that lady is a former Flash man. I think she was Flash Pink. And I should have mentioned this when I was talking about things I liked and things that threw me off, but since I'm talking about former Sentai, I guess this is the place to do it. The actress who plays the Jetman's commander is actually that same actress who plays Ko's mom in Die Ranger, I guess. But, it's a whole year difference. I'm not going to remember that. Moving on, episode 18, Guy dies. Well, he almost did. And in the Gokaiger video I did, I kind of mentioned that there was this one episode where, he has a set amount of time to live. And he's kind of dealing with his own mortality and his view of death, saying like it's okay that he's gonna die alone. But then as he nears his time limit, he actually realized that he doesn't want to die alone, and that's kind of when he like really confesses to the White Ranger, and then she's kind of embracing him as he is crystallized, which is how he's supposed to die. And when I watched the episode and I kind of put it together with Gokaiger, I was like and then it just, when I put that together, it was like, oh, I think that the Gokaiger episode just became even more my favorite. So, and even then, just the scene was pretty well done, because he's trying to act tough, but then as he counts down and he sees what the monster of the week did to its other victims, he starts to break down. And that was an interesting moment of vulnerability, especially because his love interest was there, and it was still early in the whole love shape development. Episode 24, launch Super Robot. This is actually where the Rangers get a new robot, because they have visitors from the same dimension where the villains are from. And this is actually where the actor who plays Dan in Jetman and in True Danger actually makes an appearance. So it was kind of funny seeing him. I'm like, is that Dan? And then it was. I mean, other than the appearance of Dan, this was another tragic episode. Yeah, actually, I'm noticing a theme here. Anyway, yeah, it was, so, it's a big fight. They just got these new allies. Fight's going down again. They're just getting the new robot ready, but then it gets intercepted, and there were 3 pilots, and then 2 of them were lovers, kind of like Ryu and Rie. So there was an interesting parallel there. But then when it gets intercepted and the new robot crash lands, well, they both die, and Dan is the one who's alive. And then for added drama, the girl is trying to crawl to to at least hold her lover's hand before they both die, but she doesn't make it. Like, they stop and there's a gap between their hands. But then Dan sees this, and he kind of not freaks out, but he does get angry, and it's like he yells something along the lines of, you guys were supposed to be happy together, you guys were supposed to make it. And it's like, oh man, it's tragic, especially thinking about it now. That line stings because of some recent events that I mentioned in my Georgia video. But I watched this long before that happened, so I didn't really think about it till now. And then, of course, Dan, he does save the day because he retakes the robot, but he takes some heavy damage, so he does die at the end, and his death scene is also pretty tragic because it's kind of the classic, he's lying there, everyone's kind of around him, and then he did have a special connection with Ako-chan, the Blue Ranger. He's like succumbing to his wounds, and Ako-chan puts like a ring made from a flower on his hand, and his dying words is like, did I do it? Was I cool? And then she's like, yeah, you were cool, and she's crying. It's like, oh man, it's just freaking tragic. This is a sad episode. The whole season was sad. Now that I think about it, I think that's where that rawness was, where I was just like, it was heavy, and this is supposed to be a kid show. Hang on, I'm suddenly deciding the last episode I'm trying to talk about. I think I want to end on a happier note, so let me find an episode that isn't sad or has to do with death. Oh, I forgot there was a gambling episode. And of course, Guy was the one who had to do it. Okay, not exactly a lighthearted episode, but not a heavy-ass one either. So this is episode 41, Transformation Impossible, the base destroyed. Okay, actually it's a 2-part episode, and this is actually the one where the actor who plays Geki in True Danger makes an appearance. And so basically what happens is, because this is a military-based program, this is the replacements, because the military isn't finding the Jetman, or the current Jetman, effective. So they have a different team of Jetman, the Neo Jetman, was headed by a different captain. But in the end, it was just because the captain was it was on a power trip. He didn't want Commander Odagiri to be in charge of Jetman. So because this was the second of the 2-part episode, so at this point they already had to give up their powers, and there wasn't really a big gap between the first and second part of the episode. Like, pretty sure they all happened within a day, and they were trying to fight to get their powers back. It's not like they gave it up and then returned to normal life and then got it back. I think maybe the reason why I want to talk about this episode, other than Geki's actor's appearance, is I'm trying to think when there's another time that another team, like takes over for the main Rangers, and the Rangers are like trying to find their place, or at the moment I can't exactly remember, or at least in the seasons that I watched, where the Rangers are like in the situation where they're getting replaced. There may have been like jealousy of like the newbie, the Sixth Ranger, but none where they have a feeling of being replaced. Yeah, I don't know. I would love to see an episode like this again in Super Sentai, because I think I remember they did something like this for Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue, but yeah, I can't exactly relate it to Power Rangers because this was the last season that wasn't adapted until Kyuger. Pretty much wraps up this series, this experience, and I know that's not the strongest episode or moment to leave it off on, but there are still other episodes that stood out to me. Like, I think there were like 3 classic instances of the monster of the week. You actually kind of feel bad for the monster of the week, or or like the Rangers are trying to help the monster of the week because the monster of the week isn't bad, or the one where I thought Guy was gonna die, and there's the one where Maria or Rie dies, and there's a lot. After talking this out, I just realized how raw and heavy this season was, and I'm kind of curious if all of the seasons before it were also this raw and heavy. I wish I had a better way to end this, but if I do, then it would basically lead into the finale video. It would basically lead to the finale reflection video, which I'm trying to do separately, so I don't want to do that here, so I think that might be it. But yeah, if I could, I'd want to pour out one for my man to Yuki Guy, and it's kind of why I chose the shirt. It's a black shirt because Yuki Guy was the Black Condor, and it's not jets but it has planes, so I guess that's something.